G'day, ZiggyD here with the level 50 recap for my Infernal Blow Marauder. As you can see, I'm playing in Anarchy League and I've pretty much just reached Merciless difficulty, so cleared Cruel. I'm level 51 currently and pretty much just rushed to the ledge to start farming there, which is pretty much what you always do in Merciless Act 1. So far this build has been pretty awesome to level. It's gotten more and more awesome with time, and I'm going to go ahead and, as always, jump straight into the combat just to explain to you guys and show how things are going. You'll have to excuse the frame rate skip. So I'm currently playing on a Mac, and it's not great, but it gets the job done. But as you can see, still awesomely explosive. How good is that? And I also love exploding skeletons into meat. There's something amazing about a skill that can turn bones back into meat. Very satisfying. As you can see, I'm also using Warlord's Mark and plenty of endurance charges. I've decided that I will go endurance charges on this build. I think it's just too good a defensive option to pass up. And it allows me to just stand in there and swing my sledgehammer around that's pretty much strapped with TNT and just explode all of the mobs in the area. Now I know what you're thinking, I exploded those packs pretty easily, kind of like it was nothing. Ziggy, you must have a pretty good weapon right about now, right? Incorrect. I have a blue two-handed mace, and before I got this one, which I only just upgraded, I was using another blue two-handed mace. That's pretty much all you need for this build in terms of damage, is a blue mace with a good physical damage roll. You upgrade it to 20% quality before you craft it, and you just get one with whatever links you need. So I found a 4-link, and I've got a 3-link here. I've got some 4-link gloves, so they're okay. And I just pretty much 20% quality that, and roll it with a couple alterations until I get a physical damage roll. Got pretty lucky on this one here, 99% is a pretty good roll, but I got through like 20 levels with this one here, 74% increased physical damage. Pretty awesome. I was actually using this one in Merciless until I just leveled up to level 51 when I could start using this one. Pretty awesome stuff. I had a few people requesting me to talk about gear in more detail, so I'll do that at the end, but now I want to talk about skills more specifically. So Infernal Blow, as always, is my main skill. As you can probably tell by the attack speed now, I've actually linked it to Multstrike. Now Multstrike is the skill that you click once and he attacks 3 times in rapid succession. So basically if I go over it here, Infernal Blow, if I can get it told still there, I've got a 13% in quality Infernal Blow. Now this is something you do want to save up for to try and get, because the quality bonus on Infernal Blow is extra area of effect radius. As you can see, 13% area of effect radius increase. That is pretty important for just dealing damage to those packs. You're going to be increasing your area of effect through passives and anything else you can get as well. Maybe even an increased AoE gem later on. So as you can see, I've also got the Amplify passive here for further increase to radius. Support gems, I've got melee physical damage, gives you 39% more melee damage, which multiplies with everything else, so it's fantastic to have for this. Since the whole idea of this build is to stack as much physical damage as possible and then convert it into fire damage. I don't really even need any fire damage or elemental damage nodes, because all of my damage is going to come from that conversion. So you just multiply out that physical damage as much as you can, and that's why you only need that blue mace with high physical damage. The other one I'm using is Melee Splash, which is pretty much crucial to making Infernal Blow good. Without it, it's kind of just an okay single target ability and it's trumped by other things, but with Melee Splash, this fantastic support, it becomes amazing. And then Multi-Strike is not quite as important, but it still makes this skill much easier to use and much more effective in groups. So I'll just run into another group again just to demonstrate that again. We'll try and get a nice pack of skeletons. Oh, we've got a pretty big pack of blue skeletons here, so I don't have any granites up, so these guys might be pretty tough. There we go. As you can see, still exploding those guys, very satisfactory. And you can see the splash from my increased melee radius and from the Infernal Blow radius is very high as well. And Multi-Strike also just helps with the targeting, like it'll more evenly spread the damage around. I don't know why I can't hit that totem. What the? Oh, it's my totem. I'm an idiot. I thought that was one of the ledge totems. Anyway, moving on, forgetting about that. Still using Leap Slam for mobility, not really using that for AoE damage now since I have such fantastic damage, but as I said, Leap Slam was fantastic for leveling. I do use Glacial Hammer against some rares, especially if the rare separates out from the pack. If the rare mob or tough mob is with the pack of enemies around it, you just use your Multi-Strike Infernal Blow, because you're going to be dealing damage to it and all the surrounding mobs. The surrounding mobs will explode, damaging the rare, and you have higher DPS overall. But if they separate off, it's good to use Glacial Hammer, or if they're really tough and do a lot of damage to you. Glacial Hammer is really good because it chills them, so slows them, it can freeze them, and it also does fantastic stunning, which is a big part of this build, which I'll go over in the passive skill tree in a moment. For my totem, I'm using the Rejuvenation totem, which gives me a nice boost of survivability. Honestly, I think the Decoy totem might be a bit better, so you guys might want to play around with these two and decide which you want to prefer. If you get good links later on, you might also be able to use a spell totem like the Skelly Brotem or something else. Enduring Cry, as I said, I've decided to make endurance charges a big part of this build just because it's such a great defensive option. And similarly, I'm using Warlord's Mark. It gives you increased leech, which it helps. Flask charges, which is really good for just pumping your granite all of the time, which also means you don't need to get too much survivability in terms of passives, which is great for Anarchy League. If you're playing this in Hardcore League, and I do actually still think this is fairly hardcore viable, then you are going to want to focus on those defensive passives. But with Enduring Cry and a Granite Flask, you can pretty much get away in Anarchy League without very rarely or never really dying. Glacial, I think that's everything actually in terms of skills. The only other links I've got set up is when I have sockets for it, I'll link added fire and fire penetration or things like that to Glacial Hammer. Or if you can get another more melee physical damage, or if you can get faster attacks, they're also good things to link to Glacial Hammer and Leaf Slam. I really want to get Leaf Slam set up with some better links later on so I can use it as a better mobility, because at the moment it's not much faster than running, especially if I use a Quicksilver, so not using it too much, but in the future I'll use it a lot more. So I think that's it in terms of skills. I'm going to jump into my passive tree for you guys now. So pretty much from where I showed you guys last time, I'd gotten Blood Magic, and I think Resolute Technique. I think that's all I'd gotten at that point. So from there I headed up into the Templar area, got the fantastic nodes, the most efficient life node in the game, still excellent even after the nerfs to life stacking, still really good. You go through Catalyze here, but it's not a big deal. Weapon elemental damage isn't going to help you out too much, it's just going to give you a bit of a buff from your aura. Actually, I forgot to mention in terms of auras, I'm just using Anger and Wrath since they don't really reserve much of your life. Grace is also a fantastic one to use, and as soon as I can get one of those, I'm not really that stressed about getting one right away, but once I get one of those, I'll use Grace as well. So going back to the passive tree, main reason I rushed up to the Templar, besides these fantastic life nodes and this awesome 18% physical damage and 20 to strength, sick node, was to get Amplify. As I pointed out, that's super good for that increased radius skills, and it also gives you increased area damage, which is pretty much all of the damage you're dealing. So Amplify, fantastic node to get. You could probably also get the area of effect radius, but I don't think they're a huge benefit. I think with Melee Splash, Multstrike, and quality Infernal Blow, the benefit from those is not super important. Elementals is good just for the increased elemental damage. Anything that says increased elemental damage without the on weapons part will increase the explosion, the fire damage explosion from Infernal Blow. So that's usually a flat 20%. Any increase to that is pretty nice, yeah. Other than that, headed down into the Duelist area to get the next most important node, which is Master of the Arena. Master of the Arena gives you that 2+ to melee, weapon, and unarmed range, and this is easy to it's easy to understate its importance, but I think it is really super important, especially with Multstrike. Since what Multstrike does is it roots you to the spot, so once I cast it, I actually can't move. Now what that means is increasing that range by 2, even though it's only a small, it's like a couple pixels. It makes it a lot easier to hit mobs that are moving around you like this. So basically Multstrike, if I activate it here, it might hit a mob here, it might hit a mob here, it might hit a mob here. With that increased range, makes it a lot better. That's also even better now because in this patch they extended and rebalanced the range of some weapons. And I think it feels like with two-handed weapons like this, it increased the range, so that feels just much more responsive. It also helps a little bit with desync and things like that. Still, as with any melee build, you kind of have to be going OOS every now and then to make sure that you're actually attacking mobs. Also, a really helpful tip for playing a melee build like this is to shift-click whenever you use your melee skill. Basically, what that does is it tells the game that you're going to attack standing in spot right now, no matter what. If you click on an enemy, say that's over here, you might run to the enemy and then attack them. However, if you're desynced a little bit, you might run to the enemy and attack them, but they won't actually be there, so you'll just whiff your attacks and do nothing. You'll notice if you start using shift click, so basically run up to them, then shift click, even if those mobs aren't there, you will hit other mobs instead, and you'll just end up missing a lot less. You'll whiff a lot less and it feels a lot better, so just practice using that. It does make a big difference. I think that's it in terms of passives. From now I'm going to be focusing on filling out the rest of my endurance charges, so I have this one, I need to come down here and get this one. I'm also going to come across and get these armor and resistance nodes here. I may also go up and get these, not too sure, but I've put an updated passive skill tree in the description for you guys. As I said, that'll be undergoing constant changes. I also think I'll grab this life regeneration per endurance charge, and then I'll probably come through here and get this life leech. 1% extra life leech will be helpful, and then I'm pretty much going to be focusing on any sort of stun threshold reduction nodes to do with the mace. Now, if I can remember where those are, I believe this one gives you stun duration. That'll be pretty good to get, and these ones are the stun threshold. Yeah, so basically this is something I haven't mentioned yet for this build, but I think the reason I actually went with maces over axes, even though axes can work with this build and can even do more damage, is maces give you that awesome reduced enemy stun threshold, and that's really good, especially with something like Multstrike, Infernal Blow. Basically, when you're attacking them, a lot of the time they'll just bounce around because they're stunned. I'll see if I can demonstrate this on a pack. But basically, as you're hitting them, it's splashing, and even the splash damage from Infernal Blow and from melee splash will stun enemies. So pay attention to there. You'll see them bounce around a lot as I'm attacking them, and what that does is that stuns them and roosts them in the spot. That means they're not going to run out of range of the melee splash. They're not going to, they're not going to move around. They're not going to attack you as much. Increases your survivability, increases your damage output. All around really good stuff. Stun is going to be a huge part of this build. So any other stun stuff you can get as well, like reduced enemy stun threshold on this particular belt here, will help out as well. So on that note, I'll go into gearing, and I'm going to go a little bit more in depth now in the hub than I have in the past. So as I said, with the weapon, you really only need to go with magic weapons, and I actually recommend this because it's a lot more economically efficient while you're leveling than trying to make rare weapons. If you roll an alch on a weapon and don't get that increased physical damage, you have to use a chaos or you have to scrap that weapon, because a weapon without increased physical damage like this in this build is pretty much useless. Like you could get tri-elemental damage mods, although it's a very good weapon, you can probably sell it. Not going to be useful for this build. So just roll blue weapons. Quality them out, find one with good links, arrange the links however you want, and then give yourself that increased physical damage. And that mod only really matters as well. As you can see, I rolled accuracy on this one as well, and accuracy is kind of useless for this build. I have Resolute Technique, but whatever, it has 99% increased physical damage. Good stuff. In general, I recommend trying to get the best accessories you can, so rings, belts, and amulets as you can. Now you probably will need a bit of intelligence and possibly dexterity in this build for some auras and things like that. So the best place to do that is your amulet. As you can see, I'm using a dexterity and intelligence amulet here, which also has a further intelligence roll. That means I don't have to pick up any passives, and that's pretty good stuff there. Otherwise, just focus on getting life and resist on these, and stun threshold reduction on your belt if possible. I'm using a rustic sash because it gives you the 24% increased physical damage now. Pretty awesome stuff. You could also use a life belt if you want a bit more survivability. Otherwise, just try and get your links set up. Pretty much all of your armor you want to be getting as much resistance as you can, life, the highest life rolls possible since this is a blood magic build, and then armor as well. There's no armor roll on this one, but it's got quality and it's got good links, so I'm going to keep using that. Move speed on your boots is always good, so these are pretty much just move speed boots. They have some resistances, not very good in general. And this one here, I think, only has a plus to armor. As you can see, I really need to get my armor sorted out, but it gives me some other things. I do need to upgrade my helmet pretty soon if possible. And I have my chest piece here, which has increased armor, which is really what you want, especially on your chest piece. It's worthwhile trying to either get, roll, or buy a chest piece. Be willing to spend a couple alchs on it, especially as you come into Merciless and Late Cruel, because that armor, you'll really notice if your armor is lacking. And my armor isn't even that great at the moment. Without any buffs, it's 32%, but once I get my full endurance charges and I pop a granite, it pops up to around 80%, so it becomes pretty powerful as long as you're popping those granites. And with Warlord's Mark, you're going to be getting plenty of granite charges as well. So that's another thing to note. Get a granite. They're not too expensive, but they're kind of rare to drop, so try and buy one if you can get can in trade chat. Very, very helpful for this build. Very helpful for any blood magic build, I think, or probably any build in general. And I think that's it. I don't think there's too much else. You notice I've got a lot of rarity mods, and that's kind of incidental, but it can be very, very helpful, especially in a new league. I made a video recently that talked about how I manage my wealth and stuff like that. As you progress, finding those rares is really going to help you out. So rarity isn't a useless stat. I wouldn't opt for it over life or over armor, but it can be helpful. And it just so happens I have quite a bit of rarity on this character, surprisingly. If I go to Mist, what have I got? I've got 49% increased rarity. Not too bad, not too bad. But yeah, the main thing is just to get that high physical damage roll, focus on that life, focus on that armor. It's a very, very simple build to gear, and that's kind of why I went for it in this. I just wanted to have fun with this build, kill some stuff, blow some stuff up, and not have to worry too much about the gearing, at least while leveling. And I think it's also a good build for any of you guys who are fairly new to Path of Exile to try out. There are some fantastic builds being posted for this patch, but a lot of them are very, very gear dependent. Kripparrian made a really good video recently showing off a ton of builds, but a lot of them were very gear dependent. So if you want to build you can just jump in and start farming on and have a lot of fun with, and this one's been really, really good so far. Anyway, hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video. I'm ZiggyD, and thanks for watching.